Have you ever met someone like this? They're completely exhausted from work, dark circles under their eyes, carrying everything all at once. And when you offer, "Let me give you a hand," they shake their head and say, "No, it's fine. I can do it myself." Or maybe that person is you. You'd rather stay up all night alone, rather keep struggling in silence, than pick up the phone and ask for help. Today, we're going to explore a topic that very few people talk about openly: the psychology of people who never ask for help. And this is not a rare thing. According to multiple psychology studies, somewhere between 40 and 50% of adults genuinely struggle to ask others for help, not because they don't need it, but because they're afraid. Afraid of being seen as weak, afraid of becoming a burden, afraid of something deeper that they haven't quite found the words for yet. In modern society, independence is celebrated like a virtue. Doing things on your own is seen as strength. But sometimes, that very celebration becomes a cover, hiding very real wounds underneath. This video isn't here to judge. It's here to help you understand what's really behind that behavior, what it quietly costs a person over time, and what might be possible if things were a little different. So let's find out why some people choose the path of going it alone and take it so far that it starts to hurt them. Let's talk about what this looks like in real life. Because this isn't an abstract type of person. You probably know one. You might be one. At work, they're the person who takes on too much, not because they enjoy being busy, but because they genuinely believe that if they don't do it, it won't be done right. They stay late, quietly. They redo tasks that others handed back to them, half-finished. They never say, "I'm overwhelmed." They just keep going. With friends, they're a little different. They're the listener, the one who remembers everything you told them 3 weeks ago and asks about it. They make you feel heard in a way few people can. But when you ask them, "How are you really doing?" something shifts. They smile. They change the subject. They say, "I'm fine," with such ease that you almost believe it. And when things get hard for them, really hard, they don't reach out. They go quiet. They stop showing up at dinners. They say they're tired. They're busy. They just need some rest. What they don't say is what's actually happening underneath. You've probably seen this person laugh loudly at a table full of friends. And then you've maybe also seen them, or imagined them, coming home later to an empty apartment, sitting down on the couch in the dark, not turning the lights on, just sitting there, alone with everything they didn't say. Imagine a young woman. She's just moved into a new apartment on her own. She's proud of this. It's her space, her new beginning. She's been carrying boxes all afternoon by herself. Then there's a cabinet, heavy, awkward, impossible for one person to move alone. She pushes it, tries different angles, almost gets it into place. And then it doesn't quite work. She stops. Her eyes get a little wet, not from the effort, from something else, something older. And then she hears footsteps in the hallway, a neighbor walking past. She glances at him for just a second, long enough to register that help is right there, within one sentence's reach. And she looks down, crouches down, pretends to tie her shoelace. The neighbor walks past. She waits. She stands up, and she keeps trying alone. Now you might look at that and say, she was just shy, or maybe she didn't want to bother a stranger. But it wasn't really about the cabinet, was it? It wasn't really about that neighbor, because this wasn't the first time she'd done something like that. This was a reflex, old and automatic. Something her body knew how to do before her mind even made a decision. That reflex didn't come from nowhere. It came from somewhere much earlier in her life. Think about being very young, a child. And the whole world, at that age, is basically two things: your own needs and whether or not those needs get met. When a child is cold, they reach out. When they're scared, they cry. When they don't understand something, they ask. That's natural. That's how it's supposed to work. But for some children, something goes wrong in that loop. They cry, and instead of comfort, they get "Stop that." Crying is weak. They ask for help with something, and instead of patience, they get "Figure it out yourself. You're not that helpless." They say they're struggling, and they're told they're being dramatic, or too sensitive, or not tough enough. Now a child can't fully understand what's happening. They're too small for that. What they can do, what children are incredibly good at, is adapt. And so the child learns. They learn that having needs is inconvenient, that needing help is something to be ashamed of. that asking puts you at risk of being dismissed or laughed at or made to feel like you're too much, and they learn to handle things alone, quietly, without making anyone uncomfortable with their needs. And this learning goes very deep. It doesn't stay in childhood. It travels with them into their school years, into their friendships, into their adult relationships, into that hallway with the cabinet and the neighbor walking past. Some of these people didn't grow up in obviously difficult homes. Some of them had parents who loved them genuinely. But love by itself isn't always enough if it was paired with emotional unavailability, if asking for comfort was met with distraction, if tears were greeted with discomfort, if the message, spoken or unspoken, was handle yourself. Don't be a burden. The child doesn't remember making a decision, but the adult still lives by the rule. There's another layer underneath this, and it's one that many people never quite say out loud, even to themselves. For some of these people, asking for help feels dangerous, not just because they fear rejection, but because they fear being seen, really seen, and found lacking. They carry a quiet, persistent belief that they are somehow less than they appear, that if people got close enough, if people knew the real extent of their confusion or struggle, they would be disappointed. Or worse, they would leave, so asking for help becomes an unbearable risk. Because what does asking for help mean? It means admitting you don't know. It means being in front of someone else with something unfinished in your hands. And for this person, that feels like holding up a sign above their head that says, "I'm not good enough." This is why they overperform. This is why they take on too much. Every task completed alone is a small proof to themselves that they can be enough without needing anyone. Every time they figure something out solo, they get to breathe for a moment. See, I don't need help. I'm fine. But the relief never lasts, because the next challenge comes, and the fear comes back with it. Some people can't ask for help for a different reason. It's not just fear of being seen as weak. It's that they genuinely cannot tolerate the idea of something being done differently than they would do it. They have a very specific way that the work must look. The report must be structured this way. The dinner must be cooked at this temperature. The plan must follow this sequence. And if someone else gets involved, there's no guarantee that any of that will be maintained. So they take it all on, and they tell themselves, this is about standards, quality, doing things right. But if you sit with it a little longer, something else emerges. Because the thing about needing to control everything isn't actually about the thing being controlled. It's about what happens inside you when things feel uncertain, when someone else holds the reins, when the outcome is no longer fully in your hands. For this person, letting go of control isn't just uncomfortable, it's genuinely frightening. Because underneath the perfectionism is a belief that the world is not safe unless they manage it, that things will fall apart unless they hold it all together. And the deeper truth, the one they almost never say, it's not that they don't trust other people. It's that they don't trust that other people will stay if they stop being useful, if they stop being the capable one, if they stop being the person who handles things. And then there are the ones who did ask, once, or maybe more than once. They gathered everything they had. They crossed the distance between their pride and their need, and they asked, and what happened? Someone sighed and said they were too busy. Someone offered help and then quietly forgot. Someone made a face, not even a dramatic one, just a slight flicker of inconvenience. And that face never quite left the memory. Or someone said yes, then did the thing so begrudgingly that asking for help felt worse than the original problem. The brain is very good at recording painful patterns. One rejection might be filed away as bad luck. 2 starts to feel like a pattern. 3 becomes a conclusion. Asking hurts. So stop asking. It's not a dramatic decision. It's not something they sit down and choose. It just becomes the way they move through the world. Quietly, without requests, without reaching out. The door to that part of themselves slowly closes. And after a while, they stop even checking if it's locked. Here's what nobody talks about. When a person carries everything alone for long enough, the weight doesn't stay the same. It grows. The stress doesn't get processed. It just accumulates, layer on layer, until it becomes a kind of permanent background noise that they're so used to, they don't even notice it anymore. They just feel tired, always a little tired, always a little behind. Always a little like they're catching up to something just out of reach. And this over time, becomes something heavier. The burnout that doesn't lift after a weekend. The anxiety that shows up in the middle of ordinary moments for no apparent reason. The feeling of being deeply, completely alone, even in a room full of people who care about them. That loneliness is specific. It's not the loneliness of isolation. It's the loneliness of being unseen while surrounded, of smiling and talking and laughing and still feeling like there's a wall between you and everyone else. Because the wall is real. They built it carefully over many years, and they've forgotten somewhere along the way that they're the only one who can open it. Their relationships carry this too, in ways that are sometimes invisible until something breaks. Because they are always the one who gives, always the listener, the helper, the fixer, the steady presence, the person you call when something goes wrong. And this role, for a while, feels meaningful. It feels like being needed. It feels almost like being loved. But there's something quietly painful happening underneath. The people around them begin to wonder, does this person trust me? Not in a dramatic way, just a low hum of doubt. Why won't they let me in? Do they think I can't handle it? Do they not really see me as a real friend? And then people start to drift, not because they don't care, but because connection only flows one way in this relationship. And you cannot feel truly close to someone who never needs you. You cannot feel truly seen by someone who never lets themselves be seen. So the people who never ask for help often end up, ironically, pushing away the very people they love the most, not through coldness, through distance, through the habit of being unreachable. And here's where it becomes almost painful in its irony. The people who never ask for help are often the ones everyone around them describes as the strong one, the reliable one, the one who always has it together. And they carry that description like armor. Sometimes they even believe it. They've worn it so long, it fits like skin. But underneath, there is a fortress. And every fortress, no matter how solid it looks, has cracks. And the ones in this fortress are deep. From everything that was never let out, never shared, never released, they look unshakable. And precisely because they look unshakable, nobody thinks to ask how they're really doing. Nobody worries about them. Nobody brings them soup when they're sick or checks in after the hard week, because they've spent years convincing the world they don't need any of that. They've become very successful at the one thing that was slowly breaking them. So if you recognize yourself in any of this, where do you begin? Not with a dramatic conversation, not with a sudden vulnerability that feels forced and terrifying. The brain doesn't work that way. You don't rewire years of learned behavior in one brave leap. You start small, smaller than you think is necessary. Ask a stranger for directions today, even if you already know the way, just to feel what it's like to have a need and express it and receive help without anything bad happening. Ask a colleague to pass you something. Ask the barista to double-check your order. Ask a friend, casually, what they think about something you're deciding. These are not big asks. That is exactly the point. Because what you are doing isn't really asking about directions or coffee or opinions. You are training your nervous system to learn a new equation. Asking does not equal pain. Asking does not mean humiliation. Asking does not confirm that you are too much, or not enough, or in some way unworthy of help. Each small, safe ask is a small brick of evidence being laid down. Over time, those bricks become a new path, one that leads somewhere softer than where you've been. There's also something worth sitting with for a moment, a different way of seeing what asking for help actually is. Try to remember a time when someone came to you with something real. A friend who finally told you what was really going on. A family member who said, "I can't handle this alone." The moment someone trusted you enough to need you, how did it feel? For most people, it doesn't feel like burden. It feels like being let in. It feels like being chosen. Like the relationship deepened in that moment. Became more real, more honest, more mutual. Now think about that from the other direction. When you ask someone for help, you are not being a burden to them. You're offering them something. You are giving them the chance to feel that. The chance to be useful and trusted and close. You are building what can only be built when two people are both real with each other. It might help to write down 3 moments when someone asked you for help and you were genuinely glad they did. Hold those moments. Read them back to yourself and let them slowly loosen the old story about what it means to need something from another person. Asking is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of closeness. It is what makes a relationship real. You don't need to open up to everyone. That's not what this is asking of you. Start with one person, or two. Someone who has shown, over time, that they can hold something carefully. Not someone you hope will be trustworthy. Someone who has already shown you they are, and with them, start small. Not with the biggest thing you're carrying, with something lighter. I've been feeling a bit tired lately. I think I might need to slow down a little. That's enough to start. Watch what they do with it. Let the experience of being heard be something you practice, gradually, the way you'd practice anything new. And if you are listening this because you love someone who carries everything alone, be patient with them. The question, do you need help, almost never works with this person. They've trained themselves to answer that question automatically. They will say no before they've even thought about it. Instead, just offer something specific. I'm making extra dinner tonight. I'll drop some off. I'm going to the market. Send me your list. Make it easy. Make it concrete. And don't make them perform gratitude in a way that feels like more weight. Just be present, consistently, reliably. Over time, connection grows where it feels safe. You can be part of making it safe for someone. Never asking for help is not a personality type. It's a protection strategy. One that was probably very useful, once, maybe essential. It kept someone safe when safety wasn't available any other way. But strategies that protect us in one chapter of our lives can become walls in the next. The fortress that kept the child safe becomes the prison the adult lives inside. Real strength is not the ability to carry everything without ever setting it down. Real strength is the ability to know your own limits and trust that saying so will not destroy you. It is the quiet courage to turn to another person and say, I could use a hand with this, and to stay in that moment long enough to receive what they offer. That is not weakness. That is, maybe, the bravest thing a person can do. Here is something worth leaving you with. There is a certain kind of exhaustion that only people who never ask for help know. It is not just physical tiredness. It is the tiredness of always being the one who holds it together. The tiredness of never being held, of giving out warmth and never knowing what it feels like to be warm. And sometimes, in a rare quiet moment, this person wonders, if I stopped managing everything, would anyone notice? Would anyone step in? Or would everything just fall apart? And the painful truth is that they've never found out, because they never let it get that far. They always caught it first, always steadied the thing before it could wobble, always made sure nobody had to see them struggle. But here is what I think. Quietly, and with great care, someone is probably watching. Someone who has noticed, in small ways, that you carry more than you show. Someone who doesn't know how to reach in, because you've never let there be a place where they could. Someone who would, if you gave them the chance, step toward you instead of away. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting alone through one more night. Sometimes the bravest thing is turning around, softly, and asking, hey, are you still there? Only to realize they were right there the whole time, just waiting for you to let them in. If this video reached something in you, something you felt but maybe never quite had words for, please share it with someone you think might need to hear it. Not with a message attached, just send it quietly. Let them decide what it means to them. And if you found it valuable, a like and a subscribe helps this kind of conversation reach more people who are out there, carrying things alone. Right now, tonight, wishing someone would see them. Thank you for being here.